Hey there. Imagine the hush that settles just before the world's most unpredictable sleepover. Except here, the guests are armed, the pillows are made of iron, and the sand beneath your feet is laced with legend. Tonight, you find yourself in the heart of Imperial Rome, standing beneath the age-old arches of a colossal amphitheater, while the city outside buzzes with late-night secrets. There's something in the air, a mix of anticipation and torch smoke, that hints at a spectacle you'll be telling your friends about for centuries. But hold on, because soon you'll witness the kind of one-on-one duel that even the gods might pause to watch, and the outcome is nothing like you'd expect. If this kind of midnight journey through time makes your eyelids heavy in a good way, you know what to do to stick around. And as you settle in, maybe you can let me know where in the world you're watching from, and what time the night finds you. After all, it's not every evening you share a bedtime story with gladiators. So, dim the lights, find your softest blanket, and let the shadows of ancient Rome guide you toward a dreamier place. You stand beneath the looming arches of the amphitheater, the massive stone blocks overhead pressed into place by hands forgotten by history. The rough ground under your sandals is cool and gritty, dust creeping up between your toes, a silent reminder that this arena has swallowed centuries of stories. Torchlight flickers along the high walls, painting the sand with restless shadows. The air tastes dry, tinged with the faint tang of sweat and olive oil, and the low murmur of the crowd hovers, a living thing all its own. Tonight, the arena is empty, for now. You can feel the tension, thick as honey, draping itself across every stone. The Romans have packed themselves in, layer upon layer, their robes brushing your arms, their eyes glittering with impatience. Every heartbeat is a countdown. Above, banners ripple in a faint midnight breeze, red and gold catching the torchlight in flashes. You sense the crowd's silent agreement. Tonight, someone's fate will be sealed. And it could just as easily be you as the warriors below. A senator nearby adjusts his cloak, the deep purple stripe marking him as someone worth watching. His voice, low and practiced, cuts through the noise. You know, he says, almost conversational, what happens here is more than just blood. It's a test of honor, and sometimes the gods themselves weigh in. The people around him nod, some eager, some anxious. You realize in this place, judgment is not just for the fighters. The crowd itself is a jury, and every gasp or cheer can tip the scales. The sand in the center remains undisturbed, but you notice footprints from earlier in the day, shallow, overlapping, as if the ghosts of past duels are pacing, waiting for the show to begin. The air seems to thicken with every passing moment. Each torch throws a new shadow. Each shadow seems to move, and the stone beneath your feet feels colder than it did a moment ago. You catch snippets of gossip drifting in the humid night. Did you hear about the German pit duels? A merchant whispers, his eyes wide. Supposedly, the woman stands outside the pit, swinging a rock tied in a sling. The man's stuck inside, fighting for his life. The listener shakes her head, a mix of disbelief and fascination crossing her face. You file this away, another strange custom in a world that seems to invent new ways to test courage every day. The idea is almost absurd. like an ancient version of a couple's therapy session, but with more sand and less talking. Yet, you sense the crowd's respect for any contest where the outcome is final. And sometimes, the winner is considered justified in their claim, legal or otherwise. A deep, resonant horn sounds. The crowd's murmur rises, then falls away, replaced by the unmistakable hush that comes just before the storm. You feel your pulse quicken, even though you are only here to watch. The amphitheater is a living thing, hungry for spectacle, and you are as much a part of it as the fighters who will soon walk onto the sand. For a moment, you look up. The Roman sky is velvet black, pricked with a handful of distant stars. Somewhere out there, the world continues as normal. Merchants counting coins, bakers kneading dough for tomorrow's bread. But here, under the torches and banners, normal has been left outside the gates. There's a sudden shift in the crowd, a ripple that starts near the emperor's box and rolls outward. You lean in, curiosity prickling the back of your neck. The stakes tonight are higher than usual. Life, honor, spectacle, and, some say, even the will of the gods hang in the balance. In this place, every duel is more than a fight. It's a story that will be retold, exaggerated, and woven into the tapestry of Roman history. You notice the guards along the edge of the arena, each gripping a cold iron spear. The metal catches the firelight, casting thin lines of brightness across their armor. Their faces are unreadable, but you sense even they are not immune to the tension. They are here to keep order, but also to witness. In Rome, no one is just a bystander. The wind shifts, carrying with it the scent of roasted chestnuts from a vendor outside the gates. For a heartbeat, hunger mixes with anticipation, and you remember that survival here is not just about the sword. It's about wits, timing, and sometimes just a little luck. You hear a new rumor, passed down by an elderly woman clutching a faded laurel wreath. They say Godfrey of Bouillon, that northern giant slayer, once split a man in two, right down the middle, she says, her voice trembling with excitement. The listeners lean in, their eyes wide. The tale is almost too dramatic to believe. Yet in this city, the line between myth and memory is as thin as the blade of a gladius. A moment later, the silence erupts. A group of musicians, perched above one of the main arches, begin to play. The music is slow at first, a gentle thrum of lyre and drum that seems to echo your own heartbeat. The crowd settles, every eye fixed on the empty sand. You are not just a spectator, you are part of this ancient ritual. A single breath in the vast lungs of Rome. You glance down at your hands, dust coating your skin. The sensation grounds you, reminding you that while centuries may pass, the thrill of the unknown never fades. The amphitheater seems to pulse with energy, every grain of sand a witness to the countless stories played out here. There's a gentle nudge at your elbow. A boy, no older than 12, offers you a piece of dried fig. He grins, missing a tooth, and whispers, "First time?" You nod, and he giggles, eyes bright with anticipation. Wait until you see the net fighters. They're like fishermen, but their catch fights back. The musicians pause, and another horn sounds, this one sharper, more insistent. The gates at the far end of the arena begin to creak open, ancient wood groaning. You feel the entire amphitheater lean forward as if pulled by invisible strings. The show is about to begin, and with it, another chapter in the relentless drama that is Roman life. You realize that here, under torchlight, and the watchful gaze of thousands, every choice matters. The arena does not forget, and neither will you. The gritty dust beneath your sandals, the roar of the distant crowd, the cold iron grazing exposed skin, these sensations etch themselves into your memory, long after the last torch is extinguished. Just as you settle into the rhythm of anticipation, the unexpected happens. A sudden hush falls, deeper than any before. The musicians freeze. For a brief moment, even the ever-present wind seems to stop. You sense that something unusual is about to unfold, a twist in the night's story that no one in the crowd has predicted. You draw in a slow breath as the two gates swing fully open, revealing not one, but two figures. One is a murmillo, helmet gleaming under the firelight, shield as broad as a door. The other, a retiarius, net slung over one shoulder and trident balanced in his hand, steps lightly onto the sand. The contrast is striking, heavy armor and brute strength facing off against speed and cunning. It's a matchup the crowd loves, and tonight you'll witness just how far each fighter is willing to go to claim glory under the Roman moon. You feel the tension snap back like a bowstring ready to loose. The crowd's breath is held. The sand is waiting. And you, pressed between the old stones and the endless night, are about to see a story unfold that will keep you awake long after sleep should have claimed you. Amphitheater arena, Imperial Roman period. Two gladiators face each other under the watchful eyes of 1,000 flickering torches, and an audience that smells of sweat and anticipation. You stand at the edge of the sand, close enough to see the torchlight dancing across the Murmillo's iron helmet, but far enough to feel safe from the sweep of a stray trident. The air is thick with anticipation, the kind that settles in your lungs and makes your pulse echo louder than the distant roar of the crowd. The Murmillo, a mountain of muscle, shifts his weight, shield planted like a city gate. His helmet turns, a silent nod to the crowd, or maybe just a check to see if his opponent is still circling. The retiarius, lean and wiry, paces with a grin you can almost feel through the slits of his mask. In one hand he grips a trident. The other idly twirls his net, as if warming up for a high-stakes version of Capture the Flag. Except this flag bites back. Tonight, it's less a duel and more a chess match with consequences. You can hear the scrape of sand under the retiarius's sandals, the faint click as he tests the tension of his net. The Murmillo tightens his grip on his sword. The crowd's noise rises, a living, breathing thing that swells and dips with every movement. It's easy to forget, standing here, that this isn't just a show. You're watching the Roman version of a title fight. Only the loser does not come back for a rematch. The stakes are life, honor, and the judgment of the crowd sometimes, even the will of the gods. You glance up and see the senator's box, where Rome's elite watch with the same hunger as the masses, only their togas are cleaner. Below them, merchants and bakers jostle for a better view, craning their necks as if they might catch a coin tossed from the emperor's hand. Somewhere, a child whispers a bet to his father, and the scent of roasting meat drifts across the arena, mingling with the metallic tang of anticipation. The contrast between the two fighters is impossible to ignore. The Murmillo is all heavy armor and brute force, a walking tank who could probably bench press a chariot. The Retiarius, by comparison, looks like he got lost on his way to a beach party, but decided to make the best of it. His minimal armor leaves him exposed, but his confidence says he knows exactly what he's doing. If this were a modern pay-per-view, you'd see hashtags trending before the first blow is struck. Gladiator Twitter would be ablaze. Team Murmillo versus D-Team Retiarius. You can almost hear the imaginary commentators arguing over which style reigns supreme, defense or agility, shield or net, brawn or brains. The Murmillo's sword glints as he feints left, shield raised. The Retiarius darts back, net trailing behind him like a silk banner. You catch your breath as the Murmillo lunges, blade flashing in the firelight. The Retiarius sidesteps, barely a whisper of movement, and the crowd gasps, a single sound rising and falling like a wave crashing against ancient stone. For a moment, the two men freeze. The only sound is the slow, deliberate crunch of sand under the Murmillo's sandals. You realize you're holding your own breath, heart thumping in time with the pounding of distant drums. This isn't just a fight, it's a dance, a test of patience and nerves, every second stretched thin as a drawn bowstring. Suddenly, the Retiarius lunges, flinging his net in a spiral of rope and hope. The Murmillo lifts his shield, catching the net on its edge, but the weight tugs him forward. The Retiarius yanks, trying to topple the armored giant, but the Murmillo digs in, unmoved. The crowd erupts, some cheering for the Retiarius's daring, others for the Murmillo's unshakable defense. You see a bead of sweat trickle down the Murmillo's cheek, disappearing into the collar of his armor. The Retiarius's chest rises and falls, breath coming faster now. The sand swirls around their feet, kicked up by each desperate maneuver. You can almost taste the dust, gritty and dry on your tongue. The Murmillo swings his sword in a wide arc, slicing through the empty air where the Retiarius stood just a heartbeat ago. The Retiarius dances away, trident held low, net trailing behind him like a shadow. For a second, you catch a glimpse of something almost playful in his eyes, as if he's enjoying the challenge. It's the same look you've seen on athletes before, a clutch play, or a chess master just before checkmate. Halfway through the bout, the pattern breaks. The Retiarius, emboldened by his near miss, presses in, trident darting out with the speed of a spear fisherman. The Murmillo absorbs the blow on his shield, the impact ringing out like a gong. The vibration travels through the air, making your own bones hum in sympathy. The Murmillo counters, shield bashing forward, forcing the Retiarius to stumble back toward the arena wall. You realize just how much this fight is about psychology. The Murmillo tries to corner the Retiarius, using every inch of his bulk to block escape. The Retiarius, for his part, refuses to be caged. He ducks, spins, and uses every ounce of space, the way a clever mouse might outmaneuver a cat. Even the crowd seems to sense the shift. The cheers grow sharper, more urgent. Someone throws a garland into the sand, a flash of green against the gold. If you squint, you might imagine this is less a battle and more a Roman reality show, one where the stakes are not just a trophy or a cash prize, but survival. The amphitheater's stone walls hold centuries of echoes, and tonight Your own voice joins the chorus, even if it's just a silent gasp or a whispered, incredible. Just as you think the Murmillo has the upper hand, the Retiarius springs a trap. He feints left, then darts right, trident flicking up to catch the Murmillo's shield. The net snaps out, wrapping around the Murmillo's sword arm. For a split second, the outcome hangs in the balance. The Murmillo strains, muscles bulging, trying to tear free, but the Retiarius holds fast, every tendon in his body taut as a bowstring. A hush falls over the crowd, a collective breath drawn and held. You feel the tension in your own shoulders, the way the chill of the evening air suddenly seems sharper, more electric. For a heartbeat, time slows. The torchlight flickers, shadows leaping across the sand, and you wonder if the gods themselves are watching. The Murmillo pivots, using his shield to sweep the net aside. The Retiarius stumbles, momentum carrying him forward. The Murmillo seizes the moment, sword raised. The crowd roars, a wall of sound that rattles your chest. But at the last possible instant, the Retiarius twists, rolling away in a spray of sand, the trident flashing up to keep his opponent at bay. You blink, and the two gladiators are back where they started, circling, watching, waiting for the next opening. It's as if the entire arena breathes with them, inhaling in hope, exhaling in relief. You notice the torchlit shadows trembling along the stone walls, flickering like the uncertain future of both fighters. If you ever wondered what it feels like to stand on the edge of history, this is it. The gritty dust beneath your sandals, the cold iron grazing skin, the roar of the crowd swelling and receding like the tide, it all becomes part of the memory you'll carry long after the fight is over. The signal blares, a horn somewhere behind you, and the fight begins again, both men surging forward, determined to claim more than just victory. What happens in the next instant could change everything. Amphitheater arena, mid-morning, 2 gladiators and a restless crowd. The horn has barely faded from the air, and already you feel the world shrink to the circle of sand before your feet. There is no buffer zone here, no polite handshake, no coin toss to decide who swings first. Instead, you catch the glint of iron as the Murmillo, thick-armed, helmeted, and every inch the Roman ideal of muscle, barrels forward, shield angled to catch the sun. His gladius flashes, and for a split second, you see your own reflection in the blade. A quick, warped version of yourself, wide-eyed and tense. The Retiarius, lighter on his feet, pivots so swiftly that the net he grips whistles through the air. The sound is oddly musical, for something designed to end a life. Sand grains leap up with each step, gritty under your sandals, sticking to your skin where sweat already beads. The crowd, packed shoulder to shoulder above you, erupts in a rolling wave of shouts. Then, as if all their voices are yanked back by some invisible leash, silence falls. You feel the hush press against your ears, a weight almost as heavy as the shield strapped to your arm. You sense the Murmillo's focus, a raw, animal tension. He stalks the Retiarius, shield up, sword twitching, each movement careful and measured. But the Retiarius thrives on chaos. He feints left, then whips the net toward the Murmillo's knees. The Murmillo jumps back, but not fast enough. The net brushes his shin cold and rough, and the crowd gasps. You realize that even a missed throw can draw blood, or at least a drop of panic. The two men are locked in a dance older than memory. In this amphitheater, every gesture is a message. The Murmillo's shield is a fortress. The Retiarius's trident gleams, three-pronged and wicked, promising both reach and agony. You watch as the Murmillo makes a sudden dash, shield forward, swinging his gladius in a tight arc. The Retiarius ducks, rolling through the dust, net trailing behind him like the tail of some ancient comet. For a moment, time seems to slow. You see a bead of sweat roll down the Murmillo's cheek and vanish beneath his helmet. You hear the faint scrape of metal on stone as trident meets shield. You smell the sharp tang of iron, the sweet scent of crushed herbs from garlands thrown by hopeful gamblers, the sour undertone of fear. The sunlight is harsh, painting hard shadows along the curved stone walls. Suddenly, the Retiarius springs up, hurling his net wide. The Murmillo twists, but the net catches on the rim of his shield. You hear the crowd exhale, 1,000 lungs emptying at once. The Retiarius tugs, trying to yank the shield away, but the Murmillo holds firm, muscles straining. For a breathless moment, you wonder if the net will win, if iron and rope might triumph over tradition and brute strength. The Murmillo drops his shield intentionally. The net falls limp. In one fluid motion, he steps inside the Retiarius's reach, grabs the trident shaft, and wrenches it sideways. The two men are face to face, so close you could count the lines of fatigue around their eyes. The crowd goes wild, the sound cresting and breaking like surf on stone. Dust swirls up, stinging your nostrils, swirling in the torchlit gloom beneath the arena's awnings. What just happened is simple. The Murmillo forced the fight into close quarters, where his heavier build and shorter blade rule. The Retiarius, built for distance and entanglement, suddenly finds himself in a street brawl with a man who seems carved from marble. The balance of power has shifted. You notice, too, the subtle language of the fight. The Retiarius tries to scramble back, dragging his net, but the Murmillo pins him with a knee in the sand. There is no time for dignity here. The crowd cheers for the reversal, but you sense an undercurrent. Some root for the underdog, others for the tradition-bound favorite. You catch the scent of oil burning in torches overhead, mixing with the metallic tang of blood as the first shallow cuts appear on the Retiarius's arm. A trumpet blares from the judge's platform, signaling a pause. Both men freeze, chests heaving. You look up and notice the judges exchanging glances. The rules are simple on paper, but in practice, every duel is its own storm. The tension in the arena is thick enough to taste. As the fighters stand motionless, you think of the stakes. Life, honor, spectacle, and, just maybe, the will of the gods. The Retiarius's gaze flicks upward, as if searching for some sign in the clouds. The Murmillo's eyes remain fixed on his opponent, unblinking, as if he knows that mercy is a luxury only spectators can afford. You blink, and the world snaps back to motion. The judge signals for the fight to continue. The Murmillo advances, sword low, shield abandoned. The Retiarius circles, trident up, net dragging behind like an afterthought. Their movements are slower now, each man weighed down by exhaustion and anticipation. The next exchange is brutal in its simplicity. The Murmillo feints, drawing a thrust from the trident. He sidesteps, grabs the shaft again, and this time wrenches it free. The trident clatters to the sand. The Retiarius, unarmed, reaches for his dagger, a last hope. The Murmillo's gladius hovers at his throat. You hear the crowd's collective breath catch, the outcome balanced on a blade's edge. Suddenly, a flock of pigeons wheels overhead, startled by the noise. For an instant, the sunlight is filled with wings. The crowd's focus snaps back to the arena. The Murmillo waits, giving the Retiarius a moment to yield. You realize that even in the heart of violence, there is room for choice. The Retiarius drops his dagger, raising empty hands. The judge's trumpet sounds again. The fight is over, not with a killing blow, but with a surrender. The crowd roars approval and disappointment in equal measure. Some throw laurel leaves, others coins. A few simply stand in awe. You feel the echo of the moment settle in the dust, the arena charged with the memory of what almost happened. As the two fighters are led away, you notice the subtle shift in the crowd. They are restless, already hungry for the next spectacle. The sunlight glints off the sand, the iron, the sweat-soaked skin. The amphitheater feels at once ancient and immediate, a stage for stories that refuse to fade. You realize something has changed, the way you see the arena itself. It is not just a place for blood and sand, but for choices, reversals, and the stubborn will to survive. The gods may watch from above, but here among the crowd, every heart beats faster when the stakes are highest. As the echoes of the horn fade, you sense the crowd becoming a living force, their energy swirling like dust in the sun, waiting for the next duel to begin. Amphitheater arena, late afternoon, Imperial Rome. The crowd is at its boiling point. The editor standing at the chalked boundary, two battered fighters circling in the dust. You press closer to the front, elbow to elbow, with a tunic-clad baker and the fishmonger's daughter. Everyone breathing in the same gritty haze. The air is thick with anticipation and a faint tang of iron. You cannot tell if it's the weapons, the blood, or simply the city itself. The crowd is more than just background noise. It is a living, seething creature, pulsing with its own moods, and today its appetite is for drama. You notice the man beside you, face painted with wine and dust, shouting for his favorite. The woman to your left clutches a wooden token, knuckles white, her eyes darting between the fighters and the editor, like she's tracking the fortunes of her own family. The arena's stone seats tremble as the audience surges in a wave of sound, each cheer or groan echoing off the ancient walls. It feels as if the entire city has been funneled into this one moment, their hopes and grudges tossed into the pit below. At the center, the two gladiators are locked in a tense standoff. Every small movement, the scrape of the sandal, the flick of the sword, draws a reaction from the sea of faces. You can almost feel the collective breath, held tight as a drawstring. The editor, robed in a deep crimson, is the only figure who seems immune to the tension. His eyes sweep the arena with a hawk's patience, waiting for that instant when the battle tips from competition to decision. You sense that his power is not absolute, though. Here, the crowd's opinion is a kind of currency, and today, business is brisk. A sudden clang rings out. One fighter, a wiry Thracian, lands a glancing blow to his rival's shield. The crowd erupts, half in delight, half in mockery. Someone behind you yells a joke about the loser's mother that would make even Jupiter blush. The editor's posture shifts. You see a flicker of interest, a signal that the fight is nearing its climax. This is where things get strange, at least by modern standards. In the world of ancient Rome, the audience is not a passive observer. Their voices have the weight of law. You watch as the defeated gladiator falls to his knees, arms raised in the ritual gesture of surrender. The victor stands above, breathing hard, sword glinting in the torchlight. For a heartbeat, everything freezes. The only sound is the distant caw of a crow circling above the open roof. Then the crowd surges again, not just in volume, but in intention. Some shout for mercy, others for death. You find yourself swept up, almost involuntarily, into the collective decision-making. It is the world's rowdiest group chat, except the stakes are real and the emojis are literal thumbs. You look to the editor, who now turns to the audience, scanning for the consensus. It is oddly democratic, in a brutal, Roman sort of way. The editor raises his arm, slow and deliberate, inviting the crowd's verdict. All over the arena, arms shoot up, some with thumbs pressed down, others up. You notice that people near the front tend to favor mercy, while those farther back, perhaps emboldened by distance, clamor for blood. It's a social experiment in morality, fueled by adrenaline and cheap wine. You realize that in this moment, fate is being decided by popular vote. It is the original version of crowdsourcing, no app required. The editor weighs the mood, then delivers the final gesture. The outcome is swift, irreversible, and met with a fresh swell of noise. You see the defeated gladiator's face, a mix of relief and resignation. Sometimes honor is found in defeat, especially if the crowd is feeling generous on a warm afternoon. For a moment, you catch the eye of the vendor walking the aisles with a basket of olives and barley cakes. Even he pauses, watching the drama unfold. Across the sand, torchlight dances along the stone, and the gritty dust beneath your sandals seems to vibrate with the crowd's energy. You feel the ancient weight of tradition and the modern rush of being part of something larger than yourself. Now, here comes the left turn. As you lean back, the crowd's power suddenly reminds you of something else. A modern stadium, maybe a championship game, where referees might check the replay, but the pressure comes from 20,000 chanting fans. Only here, there's no instant replay, just instant consequences. The difference is, in ancient Rome, the scoreboard is someone's life. You notice the editor's face, sharp in the flickering light, as he nods once to the victor. The crowd's energy shifts. Some cheer, others sigh. A few toss laurel leaves in tribute. The defeated man is led away, dignity intact, his fate sealed not by the sword, but by the will of hundreds. You realize how much the power of the crowd shapes every outcome in this arena. It is not just about who fights best, but who earns the favor of the masses. A soft breeze stirs, bringing the smell of crushed herbs and distant smoke. The torches cast long shadows across the sand, making the arena feel both timeless and immediate. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the sounds and sensations soak in. The gritty dust, the distant roar, the cool brush of iron, the flicker of ancient firelight. The amphitheater is a place where fate, honor, and spectacle collide, and you are right at the edge, part of the living verdict. As the crowd settles and the next bout is prepared, you sense the atmosphere shifting. The editor moves on, already scanning for the next story, the next decision. The crowd murmurs, restless, already hungry for another twist of fortune. You wonder, if history is written by the victors, who decides which victories matter? The question lingers as the sand is smoothed and the torches are refueled. The next drama waiting just beyond the gate. Sometimes, the arena is more than entertainment. It's a court of law, where the stakes are not just glory, but justice itself. Amphitheater arena, late afternoon. Two men stand at opposite ends of the sand, faces set for judgment. You slip into the crowd, feeling the hush settle thick as dust before a storm. The benches around you creak with anticipation. Here, in imperial Rome, justice is about to be served, sword in hand, under the open sky, and with no toga-clad lawyer in sight. You catch the scent of oil from torches ready to be lit. The sun is lowering, and the air hums with the expectation of something both grave and spectacular. Unlike the usual gladiator match, this fight is not for fame. It is for a verdict. Imagine a courtroom where the gavel is replaced by a gladius, and the jury is several thousand strong, roaring for blood or mercy. The two men, let's call them Marcus and Gaius, are not professional fighters. Marcus wears the red sash of a merchant, his hands more used to ledgers than hilts. Gaius, a wiry farmer, shifts nervously, gripping a battered shield. Their dispute: a patch of land, some olives, a family grudge stretching back to when Augustus was still a rumor. Today, the law has declared that words have failed. Only combat will decide who is right, or at least who will walk out to tell the tale. The arena's sand is gritty beneath your sandals. You watch as the magistrate, resplendent in a white tunic, raises a hand for silence. "This is not theatre," he intones. "This is justice." For a moment, you wonder if modern courtrooms would be more efficient, with a little less paperwork and a little more swordplay. Jury duty would certainly be more exciting. A hush falls as Marcus and Gaius circle each other. The crowd's breath is a low tide, pulling back before it crashes forward. The first clash of iron on shield is sharp, echoing against ancient stone. You feel the vibration in your teeth. Marcus lunges, not with the grace of a gladiator, but with the desperate hope of a man with everything to lose. Gaius stumbles, regains his footing, and swings wide. The fight is ugly, frantic, real. It is here, in the torch's flickering glow, that you realize the sand is not just a stage. It is a witness, soaking up sweat, spit, and the occasional drop of blood. The amphitheater itself seems to lean in, eager to see who fate will favor. In this moment, the outcome will decide not just property, but honor, family, the shape of lives yet to come. Suddenly, Marcus slips. The crowd gasps as Gaius moves in, his shield raised. There is a heartbeat of hesitation, a silent question. Should mercy play a part? But the law is clear. The winner's claim is justified, the loser's voice silenced. With a final, unsteady thrust, Gaius lands a blow that sends Marcus sprawling. The magistrate steps forward. The crowd erupts, and you hear the verdict, not from a judge's lips, but from the roar of thousands. Justice, Roman style, is not for the faint of heart. You notice, as the dust settles, that the losing side's family is already edging away, faces pale. The winner, Gaius, still trembling, raises his arm, not in triumph, but in relief. The crowd's energy is like a summer storm, quick to rise, quick to dissipate. Somewhere above, a flock of birds wheels in the red sky, unbothered by the mortal drama below. Here's a left turn for you. You might think this is a uniquely Roman affair, but the idea of trial by combat has travelled through history like a stubborn rumour. In medieval France, courts sometimes let men settle disputes with swords rather than speeches. And if that seems wild, wait until you hear about German pit duels. In some cases, a woman had to keep one foot in a cloth sack at all times while fighting a man. The rules were strange, but the stakes were always the same. Winner takes all, and the loser's claim is buried with them. The atmosphere in the arena lingers heavy with what-ifs. You can taste metal at the back of your throat, or maybe that's just the memory of the fight. The amphitheater's stone is warm against your back as you lean into the moment, trying to make sense of what you've seen. This is more than sport. It is the law made flesh, and the sand never forgets. You wonder, as you watch the crowd flow out like water over stone, how many lives have been changed by the turn of a blade here. The sun is almost gone, leaving long torchlit shadows that flicker against the walls. Somewhere in the hush, you hear a soft voice, maybe your own, maybe the city's, asking if this really was justice or just spectacle, dressed in the clothes of law. In imperial Rome, the answer is always a little of both. A cool breeze stirs the dust, carrying the echoes of the crowd toward the city's bustling heart. You step away, the gritty sand still clinging to your feet, already sensing that every so often the regular gladiators are joined by an outsider. The night is young, and the arena's appetite for drama is never quite satisfied. Amphitheater arena, imperial Rome, evening. You stand pressed between sweating shoulders, the gritty dust shifting under your sandals, as a condemned criminal is led out below the torchlit vaults. His head gleams from a fresh shave. His limbs quiver, but his eyes dart with the desperate alertness of a man who has not quite given up. Tonight, the usual parade of seasoned fighters pauses, and the crowd shifts with anticipation. This is no ordinary match. The rules are about to take a sharp detour. The criminal, let's call him Felix, because every condemned man deserves a little luck, grips a battered lance in both hands. His opponent, a broad-chested Retiarius, with the confidence of a man who knows the crowd, loves a favorite, twirls his own spear with a casual flick. You can almost taste the tension in the air, prickly as the cold iron brushing Felix's knuckles. Every so often, the arena throws in an outsider, and tonight, that outsider is visibly trembling but still upright. The crowd, always hungry for a plot twist, erupts in a low, hungry roar. If you squint, you might even catch a senator leaning forward, ready to place a bet. A horn blares. Sand flies. The duel begins with lances, the long wooden shafts clacking against shields, scraping sparks off the edge of a helmet. Felix jabs with reckless energy, hoping to keep his opponent at bay. The retiarius, all muscle and calculation, parries and grins, luring Felix in with every feint. If you've ever watched two people try to wrestle the last shopping cart at a crowded supermarket, you have a sense of the awkward, desperate dance now playing out. Only, in this version, the stakes are life and death, not groceries. Felix loses his grip for an instant, and his lance skitters across the sand. The crowd gasps as if watching a favorite actor forget his lines. Without missing a beat, the retiarius launches his own spear, but Felix ducks, rolling in the dust. He snatches up a sword tossed in by a grizzled attendant. Part of the spectacle, you realize, as the duel now moves to blades. The crowd loves it when weapons change mid-fight. It is the Roman equivalent of a bonus round. Now, the clang of steel rings sharper, and the smell of sweat thickens. You watch Felix's hands shake as he swings the sword, clumsy but determined. The retiarius, wielding the gladius with practiced ease, presses the attack. Sparks flash in the torchlight, and the audience leans in, faces flickering between hunger and hope. You hear a woman behind you mutter a prayer to Fortuna, as if the goddess herself might intervene with a lucky break. Felix stumbles, but the sword catches the edge of his opponent's greave. The crowd erupts. For a moment you feel the energy shift, as if the very stones beneath your feet are holding their breath. Then, as if the gods are feeling playful, an attendant slides a pair of axes across the sand. The fighters hesitate, then exchange a quick, wary glance. The rules are clear: adapt or perish. Felix, wild-eyed, grabs an axe, the cold iron biting his palm. The retiarius follows suit. Now, the fight lurches into chaos, axes swinging, the dull thunk of metal on wood echoing off ancient stone. Here is where the crowd's appetite for spectacle meets the raw edge of chance. Felix's axe glances off a shield, sending splinters flying. The retiarius counters, driving Felix back toward the arena wall. You notice how the patterns of torchlight flicker across their faces, throwing shadows that make both men look half mythical, half terrified. The arena dust stirs with each desperate step. At one point, Felix slips, but manages to swing upward, catching the retiarius on the thigh. Blood beads in the firelight. The crowd howls, sensing a possible upset. If you listen closely, you can hear the muffled chant of gamblers in the upper rows, recalculating their odds with every blow. There is a sense that anything could happen, a reminder that, in ancient Rome, the script is always up for revision. The criminal's wild hope seems to grow with every heartbeat, fed by the crowd's mounting frenzy. Now, imagine for a moment that the script changes again. In the far corner, a wooden scaffold has been set up, a detail borrowed from another infamous duel. On top of it, Marguerite, a woman sentenced to witness a fight for her own fate, is made to watch. Her presence is a silent reminder that the arena can be both spectacle and sentence at once. The crowd glances her way, murmuring. The air feels heavier, as if the gods themselves are watching. The fight returns to its frantic rhythm. axes clashing and sweat stinging Felix's eyes. The criminal, spurred on by the memory of Marguerite's gaze and the promise of freedom, launches a desperate flurry. The retiarius falters for a split second, and Felix, against all odds, lands a blow that sends his opponent sprawling. The crowd roars, a wall of sound that makes your chest vibrate. For a heartbeat, no one moves. Then the retiarius stirs, blood streaking his leg. The criminal stands over him, panting, axe raised. The official steps forward, hand up, and the crowd holds its collective breath. You feel the judgment in the air, honor, spectacle, and the will of the mob, all balanced on a knife's edge. Felix looks up, searching the stands for a sign. The torches flicker, and the shadows lengthen. The crowd's verdict will decide his fate, freedom or oblivion. You realize that in this moment, anyone, criminal, senator, bystander, can be swept into the bloody poetry of the amphitheater. The dust settles. Felix waits. Somewhere a trumpet blares, and the next twist is already waiting in the wings. Tonight's duel features a bizarre twist. Instead of the usual sword and shield, one fighter wields a weighted lasso, the other a pair of curved daggers. Amphitheater arena, late afternoon, Imperial Rome. Two gladiators stand facing off, surrounded by a ring of shifting torchlit shadows and the distant, eager hum of the crowd. You feel the gritty dust beneath your sandals, fine as flour and just as likely to stick, as you lean forward for a better look. There's something off about tonight's duel, and it isn't just the nervous energy crackling in the air. Where you'd expect the familiar weight of sword and shield, you see instead a thick, knotted lasso swaying in one man's grip, and, in the other's hands, a pair of daggers curved like the smile of a trickster god. The crowd is restless, their voices rising and falling like the tide. Novelty, you realize, is the true coin of the arena. Even the most jaded Roman craves something different, something that will make the next day's gossip just a bit more colorful. The man with the lasso, Calidus, lets the rope drag behind him, the knots thumping softly against the sand. His opponent, Lucianus, twirls his daggers, testing their balance, his eyes never leaving Calidus. It's less a fight at first and more of a dance. No clang of steel on steel, just the whisper of leather soles pivoting, the soft grunt of exertion as Lucianus feints left, then right. Calidus swings the lasso in slow, deliberate circles, watching for an opening. The air is heavy with anticipation, as if the gods themselves are holding their breath. The first real move comes unexpectedly. Lucianus darts forward, blades flashing, but Calidus sidesteps and snaps the lasso out. You hear the rope slice the air, quick as a finger snap, but Lucianus slips beneath it. The crowd gasps, delighted by the close call, and you find yourself grinning. This isn't the usual slugfest. It's chess, but played with muscle and nerve, rather than pawns and bishops. Behind you, a vendor hawks honeyed nuts, the scent drifting over the stone benches and mingling with the metallic tang of anticipation. The amphitheater, with its towering arches and rows upon rows of restless spectators, feels timeless and immediate. You can almost forget that beyond these walls, the world is full of marble forums and chariots rattling down busy streets. Here, All that matters is the next move. Kalidas tries again, this time feinting low and swinging the lasso at Lucianus's ankles. The daggers glint as Lucianus leaps, landing with a spray of sand and a cocky grin. For a moment, the crowd's noise falls away, replaced by your own racing pulse. You've seen sword fights, shield bashes, and even the occasional trident. But a lasso and daggers? This is new territory, even for Rome. As the duel continues, both men circle warily. Kalidas keeps his distance, relying on reach and timing. Lucianus, by contrast, is all close quarters energy, his feet moving in quick, unpredictable patterns. You catch sight of a senator in the front row, leaning forward with an excitement usually reserved for political intrigue. A sudden shift. Lucianus lunges, aiming a dagger at Kalidas's forearm. The lasso flicks out, not to entangle but to distract, and for a split second, the two are locked in a strange embrace, rope against blade, sweat-slicked arms straining for advantage. The crowd erupts, half cheering, half jeering. You realize that unpredictability is the real entertainment tonight, not simply the promise of violence. There's a moment, fleeting but unmistakable, when Kalidas nearly loses his grip. The lasso slips, catching on his wrist, and Lucianus's dagger grazes his skin, leaving a thin red line. It's enough to draw a collective breath from the onlookers, a sharp intake that seems to echo off the ancient stone. Kalidas recovers, pulling back and resetting his stance. But the balance has shifted. You feel it in the way the crowd leans in, hungry for a turning point. Now, every feint and parry feels charged with new significance. The dust hangs in the air, swirling in the light of the torches, and you can see the tension in Kalidas's jaw as he reassesses his strategy. Lucianus, for his part, seems to grow bolder, pressing the attack with short, stabbing motions that force Kalidas to retreat. Just as you expect Lucianus to close in for the kill, Kalidas does something unexpected. He loops the lasso low, not aiming for Lucianus's legs this time, but for the daggers themselves. The rope catches one blade, twisting it out of Lucianus's grip and sending it skittering across the sand. The crowd roars, half in disbelief, half in admiration. For a heartbeat, the amphitheater feels suspended in time. The torchlight flickers across the fighters' faces, casting long shadows that dance on the walls. You can taste the anticipation, sharp and electric, as Lucianus weighs his options. Does he retrieve the lost dagger? Does he switch tactics? In that breathless pause, you remember that in Rome, innovation is often rewarded with survival. Lucianus shifts, deciding to press on with a single dagger. His movements grow tighter, more desperate. Kalidas, emboldened, swings the lasso wider, keeping his opponent at bay. The rhythm of the fight changes, each man adapting to the new reality. You can almost hear the crowd recalibrating their bets, murmuring to one another in 1,000 little calculations. The sand is churned up now, each step leaving a fresh print. Kalidas feints, then suddenly throws the lasso high, aiming for Lucianus's shoulders. The rope snags, pulling Lucianus off balance, but he manages to twist free, rolling and coming up in a crouch. The crowd erupts again, the noise bouncing off the stone and rattling your bones. The amphitheater feels alive, a living thing hungry for spectacle. You glance around, noting how even the most seasoned spectators are on edge. This isn't just a fight, it's a test of wit and nerve. You wonder, fleetingly, what other surprises the arena might hold. After all, in a world where innovation can mean the difference between life and death, who's to say what weapons might appear next? The fight slows, tension thick as oil, as both men circle, searching for the next opening. The crowd holds its breath, and so do you, waiting for the next twist in the sand. Amphitheater arena, midday. Two battered gladiators and the editor, Rome's ultimate judge, stand at the center of everything. You're there, squeezed between a sandal-clad merchant and a boy with wine stains on his tunic, your heart thumping in time with the pounding of the crowd's feet. The sun hangs overhead, casting sharp shadows across the sand. You catch the coppery scent of blood, sharp and almost metallic, mixing with the gritty dust that coats your lips and lashes. The fighters, one thick-set, the other wiry but quick, circle each other in a slow, staggering dance. Their chests rise and fall, as if each breath could be their last. The sound of their gasps somehow louder than the distant roar of the spectators. Now, everything slows. Even the air seems to hesitate, heavy with tension and the faint tang of sweat. The combatants' weapons droop, iron blades stained with rust and something darker. You see one gladiator, let's call him Marcus, wipe blood from his brow with the back of his hand. His opponent, a man with a broken nose and an unreadable expression, shifts his weight, sending a tiny puff of dust swirling around his foot. The crowd, moments ago a living beast of noise, falls silent. You hear the scrape of a sandal against stone, the nervous cough of a senator's wife, the rhythmic drumming of your own pulse. All eyes swing to the editor, the man whose thumb decides the fate of the fallen. He sits high above the arena floor, wrapped in a crisp toga, expression as unreadable as the Sphinx. The editor's right hand hovers mid-air, fingers poised as if conducting an orchestra of fate. You notice a thin gold ring glinting on his finger, catching the sunlight and sending a tiny spark across the stone seats. One gesture, up or down, and it's either mercy or the end. This moment stretches so long you begin to wonder if time has taken a holiday. Your breath catches. The crowd's anticipation feels like static, prickling across your skin. The editor's ritual is almost theatrical. He glances at the crowd, scans the faces. There's a certain showmanship in that pause, as if he's savoring the suspense. You catch yourself holding your breath, waiting for the verdict. The entire amphitheater seems to lean forward. The gladiators, battered and barely standing, lock eyes with the editor, silently pleading or daring. The moment is so drawn out that you start to wonder if the editor might break into song or slip out for a quick snack, just to tease the audience. But this is ancient Rome. Every second is a performance, every gesture loaded with meaning. A thumb tilts, just a fraction. At first, you can't tell which way it will go. The crowd tenses as one, like a flock of birds startled by a shadow. The decision, when it comes, is almost anticlimactic, a smooth, practiced movement. The editor's thumb points upward. Relief floods the arena. The defeated gladiator collapses to his knees, trembling, overcome by the knowledge that his life has been spared. The victor, too, staggers backward, as if the tension has left him hollow. Around you, the crowd erupts, not with a roar, but with a low, approving murmur, the kind of sound you might hear at the end of a suspenseful play, when everyone is still catching their breath. This is the high-wire act of Roman justice, played out in public. Sometimes the fate of a gladiator hangs not on skill or courage, but on the whims of a single silent gesture. You realize that in this world, spectacle and power are inseparable. The editor, part judge, part celebrity, holds lives in his hand, and the entire city watches. You shift on your stone seat, feeling the rough surface press into your legs. A vendor nearby hawks honeyed nuts, his voice a soft counterpoint to the dying echoes of the crowd. The combatants are led off, one limping, the other barely able to walk, both marked forever by the ordeal. The sand is raked smooth again, erasing the evidence, as if nothing ever happened. You taste dust, and remember that here, in ancient Rome, the line between life and death is as thin and sharp as a gladius blade. But just as you settle back, the ritual of the editor lingers in your mind. The power of a thumb, the hush before the verdict. It's not so different from modern drama, really. Everyone waiting for the judge's ruling, or a reality show host's final word. The anxiety, the spectacle, the public hunger for resolution. It makes you wonder, how much has really changed? Sometimes the air is thick with more than sweat and dust. On rare days you hear whispers of duels beyond Rome's walls, battles in distant lands governed by rituals just as strange. Imagine, for a moment, a duel in a German pit, where the stakes are not only honor, but legal victory. In that world, the rules twist. One duelist, a woman, must keep a foot in a cloth sack at all times, hopping and swinging with every ounce of strength she can muster. The crowd, just as eager for spectacle, watches with a mix of curiosity and disbelief as the fight unfolds. If she wins, her claim is considered justified. The law itself bends to the outcome of the duel, as if justice can be measured in bruises and broken bones. The tension of the Roman arena echoes here too, though the dust tastes colder and the shadows stretch longer. The suspense, the spectacle, the life-changing verdict, they cross borders and centuries, linking you to strangers whose fates were decided by the crowd, the judge, or the gods themselves. Back in the arena, the editor wipes his brow, perhaps thinking of his own power, or simply of dinner. The sand is swept, the torches flicker, and another pair of fighters awaits their turn. You realize that every judgment, every duel, is a story with an open ending, a decision that ripples outward, shaping lives, reputations, and the myths that linger long after the crowd has gone home. If you listen closely, you might hear the faint echo of the crowd's anticipation carried on the breeze. The suspense never really leaves. It settles into the stones, waiting for the next contest. And so, you remain, just one more witness to the endless drama of ancient Rome, the dust, the blood, and the silent power of a single thumb. Rome, late afternoon. The amphitheater is restless, and you are pressed into the crowd, the sun hanging behind drifting clouds. The air feels heavier than usual, not just with the usual cocktail of sweat, dust, and anticipation, but a hush that prickles at your skin. You spot a raven perched on the arena wall, its head cocked as if it knows something you do not. Every muscle in the crowd seems to tense, and a collective breath is held. You can practically hear the heartbeat of the city itself, pulsing beneath the stones. You glance at the fighters below. Each one is a statue brought to life, steel reflecting torchlight, faces set and eyes flickering upward. They're not just measuring the odds or the opponent's reach. No, they are searching for omens. Is the raven a messenger of death? Is that cloud a veil from Jupiter, or just a passing shade? In this moment, superstition hangs thicker than the scent of oil and leather. The announcer's voice slices through the tension, calling out the names of the duelists. You see Marcus, tall and broad-shouldered, already glancing over his shoulder at the bird. His opponent, Lucius, moves with the careful steps of someone counting every sign from the gods. If you lean close enough, you might hear Lucius mutter a prayer under his breath, words lost to the roar that erupts as the fight begins. The sand is gritty beneath your sandals, and you notice a pattern. Every time the crowd gasps or a fighter stumbles, eyes dart skyward, searching for meaning in the smallest movement. You're not immune to this fever. When someone near you whispers about the last time a raven landed on the wall, the favorite lost, the underdog survived, you feel the hairs on your arms rise. A clang of iron on iron rings out, sharp and cold. Marcus lunges, blade flashing. Lucius sidesteps, almost tripping over a patch of churned-up sand. The crowd's murmur warps into a chant, but every so often it's undercut by the nervous laughter of someone who's seen too many omens go wrong. You catch yourself wondering if modern sports fans ever blame a lost game on a pigeon landing at halftime. Here, it is deadly serious. You realize that in ancient Rome, these omens are more than just a running joke or a quirk of the old world. Sometimes the emperor himself will pause a match if a bird's flight looks suspicious. Other times, a duel will be delayed because a priest claims the gods are displeased. In a city where life and death can hinge on a shadow or a bird's cry, the arena becomes a stage for both mortal courage and celestial drama. Tonight, it feels as if the gods are restless. The torchlight throws strange shadows across the arena floor, and you catch Lucius glancing at them, lips moving. Marcus, meanwhile, touches the small charm tied around his wrist. It could be a family heirloom or a token from a lover, but in this moment it is a shield against the unknown. Suddenly, a cloud slides across the sun, plunging the arena into a cool dimness. The crowd lets out a collective sigh, and for a heartbeat, everything pauses. You can almost taste the fear in the air. The fighters freeze, uncertain. The raven flaps its wings and takes off, circling overhead. Lucius is the first to move, emboldened by the shifting light. He darts forward, his sword scraping against Marcus's shield. The clash echoes, and the crowd erupts, the tension snapping like a rope pulled too tight. You feel yourself swept up in it, heart pounding, senses alive to every detail. The roughness of the stone beneath your hand, the tang of metal, the flicker of movement in your peripheral vision. This is not just a fight. It is a test of fate, witnessed by thousands and judged by powers both seen and unseen. You wonder, for a moment, if the outcome is already written somewhere in the stars, or if it hangs on the edge of a blade. You watch as Marcus gains ground, his confidence growing with each step. Lucius, lighter on his feet, circles warily, never taking his eyes off the sky. The duel dances between raw skill and pure luck, each move shadowed by superstition. Then, a pattern interrupt. The raven swoops low, its shadow crossing Lucius's face. The crowd gasps as if the bird itself has chosen a side. Lucius falters, his sword arm hesitating for a fraction of a second. Marcus seizes the moment, driving Lucius back with a flurry of blows. You sense the energy shift. Suddenly, the crowd believes Marcus is favored by the gods. For a moment, the fight seems to teeter on the edge. Lucius rallies, parrying a vicious strike and spinning away, but the magic has gone out of him. The crowd's chant grows louder, more confident. You feel the arena tilt toward Marcus, as if destiny itself has picked a winner. The next strike is decisive. Marcus's sword knocks Lucius's weapon from his hand. The crowd explodes, and you are caught in a wave of sound so powerful it rattles your bones. Lucius drops to his knees, head bowed, as Marcus lifts his blade in salute. Yet even in victory, Marcus glances up, searching for the raven, for a final sign that the gods approve. As the dust settles, you realize how thin the line is between belief and reality in this place. Every duel is a gamble, not just with swords, but with fate. The crowd disperses slowly, some still whispering about the omens, others already placing bets on the next match. You feel the grit of the arena floor clinging to your skin, a reminder that you were here, that you witnessed something shaped as much by superstition as by steel. If you listen closely as you leave, you'll hear a few old-timers muttering about the next fight, wondering if another raven will appear, or if the gods will throw something even stranger into the mix. The air is thick with possibility, the arena alive with stories waiting to unfold. Tonight's contest is personal. Amphitheater arena, Imperial Roman period, 2 men in the sand, dusk. You stand in the press of bodies, the scent of olive oil and sweat hanging heavy in the air. Torches flicker along the stone rim above, throwing restless shadows across the sand. Tonight, the arena is not just a place for sport. It's a stage for revenge, and everyone knows it. You can feel the mood, thick and electric, as the crowd leans in for blood and drama. The 2 rivals, let's call them Cassius and Decimus, face each other, eyes locked. This is not a friendly contest. You catch the ripple of tension, sharper than the glint of a blade. The rumor mill in the taverns has been working overtime. Whispers say Cassius insulted Decimus's family at a banquet, and Decimus responded by stealing Cassius's lover. Old wounds, nursed over countless evenings, are about to spill into the open, right here, under the gaze of Rome's hungry thousands. A hush falls. You notice the dust under your sandals, dry and gritty, clinging to your toes. The air tastes of iron. Decimus circles with slow, deliberate steps, his sword held low, while Cassius's knuckles whiten around his shield. This is not just another day at the games. The stakes are more than life and death. There's honor, pride, and the chance to rewrite the story everyone will tell tomorrow. Cassius lunges, fast as a whip. Decimus parries, metal shrieking, sparks leaping up like fireflies. The crowd roars, and you feel it in your chest, a physical wave. The noise is everywhere, echoing off ancient stone, but the fighters hear nothing except each other's breathing. You see Cassius try to bait Decimus with a feint, but Decimus is too clever. He steps back, drawing Cassius deeper into the center of the arena, right into the pool of torchlight, where every bruise and drop of sweat is on display. You can almost taste the rivalry. The air itself seems to crackle. Cassius spits a curse, barely audible above the din. Decimus grins, and for a moment you wonder if he's enjoying this a little too much. These are not men fighting for mere survival. They are gladiators fighting for a grudge that has grown larger than life. Every movement is a message. When Cassius swings wide, Decimus dodges with a dancer's grace, kicking up a cloud of dust. You blink, and the world blurs. Just for a moment, you lose sight of the blades and see only the look in their eyes. The crowd, sensing the personal stakes, shifts from cheers to something quieter, almost reverent. It's like the Colosseum has become a theater, and you're front row at the world's oldest soap opera. Suddenly, Cassius overcommits. His foot slips, skidding on the sand. Decimus pounces, driving him back toward the edge of a shallow pit dug for this bout. This is no ordinary arena feature. It's a nod to the infamous German pit duels, where the fighter inside the pit is at a serious disadvantage. For a heartbeat, you imagine yourself stuck down there, mobility limited, every move watched, every mistake magnified. The pit is only waist deep, but it changes everything. Cassius is forced to fight from below, while Decimus stands above, raining down blows. You watch as Cassius tries to scramble out, but Decimus swings with ruthless precision. The crowd gasps as Cassius barely deflects a strike meant for his head. Dirt clings to his arms, sweat streaks his face, and the iron tang of blood hangs in the air. Cassius, though, is nothing if not creative. He feints left, then brings his shield up hard, catching Decimus by surprise. For a split second, Decimus teeters, nearly tumbling into the pit himself. The crowd erupts. Everyone loves an underdog moment. You feel your own heart skip, caught between relief and anticipation. This is the pattern of every great rivalry. Just when you think it's over, the story twists. Imagine if modern rivals settled their scores, not with cryptic social media posts, but with real swords, under torchlight, in front of thousands. The drama would be louder, the stakes higher, and the winner's bragging rights eternal. The amphitheater, in this moment, is less like a sports stadium and more like a reality show with absolutely no censors. The pit duel, borrowed from the Germanic tribes, was notorious for stacking the odds. In some traditions, the man fought from inside the pit, while the woman, if you can picture it, stood above, armed with a rock in a sling, one foot always kept inside a sack. The rules were as strange as they were brutal. You imagine the discomfort, the awkward balancing act, the sheer unfairness. Here in Rome, it's been adapted as a spectacle, another way to crank up the tension, to give the crowd something to gossip about. The air grows heavier, the torchlight flickers. Cassius, still in the pit, looks up, face streaked with dust and determination. Decimus hesitates, just long enough for Cassius to seize his arm, yanking him off balance. For a second, both men teeter on the edge of disaster. The crowd holds its breath. You can hear the slap of sandals on sand, the ragged panting of two men who have forgotten everything except their feud. The fight resets. Both men are battered, pride bruised as much as flesh. The crowd's energy shifts, more restless now, hungry for resolution. You catch snatches of dialogue from nearby spectators. One grizzled merchant mutters that this is better than any chariot race. Another claims he saw Decimus cheat last summer. The opinions swirl like dust, impossible to pin down. A sudden gust of wind sends a spray of sand across your face. You blink, tasting grit. High above, a magistrate signals for the match to continue. The fighters lock eyes again, no love lost, no quarter given. In that instant, you realize this is about more than old insults or stolen lovers. The arena is where grudges are set free, where ancient scores are settled in front of everyone. The outcome will echo in taverns and markets for weeks. Cassius, battered but unbroken, faints again, and this time manages to swing himself up out of the pit. The crowd erupts, the sound rolling over you like thunder. Torchlight dances on the stone, casting long shadows that flicker and twist. The duel is nearly at its end, but neither man will yield. You sense the tension reach its peak, the possibility of either triumph or disaster hanging in the air. You glance at the sand, see the pattern of scuffed footprints and blood drops. This is history, written moment by moment, and you are close enough to feel every heartbeat. The amphitheater, always hungry for drama, waits for the final act. The fight ends soon, but the story lingers, hanging in the torchlit air, tempting you to lean in for just one moment more. Imperial Rome, late afternoon. You stand in the center of the amphitheater arena, the crowd's energy now spent, the sand beneath your sandals gritty and uneven. The last shout is still fading, echoing along the ancient stone, and you realize how quickly the thunder of excitement can dissolve into an eerie, hollow quiet. It is as if the arena itself is holding its breath, waiting for the next story to unfold. You look around. The torches along the walls flicker, their flames guttering as a faint wind snakes through the arches. The air smells of sweat, iron, and the faint tang of spilled wine. There is a sense that something monumental has just happened, yet the world outside seems completely unaware. Somewhere up in the stone seats, a single laugh bounces off the walls, oddly cheerful against the hush. Mostly, though, you just hear the wind brushing over the sand and the bloodstains. Your own feet feel heavy, as if the dust has settled into your very bones. It is a strange thing, standing where men just moments ago were fighting for their lives and honor, all under the gaze of the Roman crowd. You feel the weight of that judgment, and for a moment you can almost believe the gods themselves were watching, deciding fates with a tilt of the head. You notice a glint on the ground, a broken piece of a gladius, half buried in red streaked sand. The blade is cold when you brush it with your toes, and for a second you imagine the heat of battle still clinging to its edge. The iron leaves a faint metallic chill on your skin, a reminder that even in the aftermath, the fight lingers. The amphitheater seems transformed now. Where moments before there were roars, and the clash of arms. Now there is only the whisper of wind, the shadows stretching long and thin across the arena floor. The torches cast odd shapes on the ancient stone, reminding you that this place has seen countless such duels, each leaving a story behind in the dust. You step carefully, the grit clinging to your sandals. The sand is uneven, churned up by desperate feet. In places it is stained dark, a silent map of the struggle that just played out. You feel the urge to trace these marks, as if following the path of the fighters might uncover some secret about courage, or fear, or what it truly means to face another human being with everything at stake. At the edge of the arena, a helmet lies abandoned, its plume trailing like a wilted flower. You can almost hear the ragged breathing of its owner, the thud of a heartbeat that was, moments ago, all that stood between life and oblivion. The aftermath of the fight is not just quiet, it is haunted. Every object left behind seems to be holding on to a fragment of the struggle. The crowd, once a sea of faces, is now thinning. Some linger, voices hushed, as if gossiping about what they just witnessed. Others slip away into the gathering dusk, eager to tell their own versions of the story. You catch snippets of conversation, praise for the victor, sympathy for the fallen, and, inevitably, a few wagers being settled with a slap on the back. You are left with the echoes. The amphitheater is almost empty, the silence more profound for the memory of noise. You feel exposed, as if the arena itself is sizing you up, wondering what you would have done had you been called to fight. There is something deeply human in that moment of reflection, the mix of relief and guilt, pride and humility. Your senses sharpen. The cold stone beneath your feet sends a shiver up your spine. The torchlight flickers on the walls, throwing your shadow long and strange. You breathe in, the air tinged with smoke and anticipation, though the fight is over. The silence is not peaceful. It is charged, filled with the unspoken aftermath of violence and spectacle. You think of Godfrey of Bouillon, that legendary figure known for his devotion and for the sheer force of his presence. You imagine that, in a different time or place, he might have stood here too, a man whose strength was as famous as his faith. Each duel a test not just of muscle, but of spirit. Now, just as you settle into the chill, the scene shifts. Picture another arena far to the north, Germany, where pit duels unfold in muddy clearings under a leaden sky. Here, the rules are strange. A woman, fighting for her honor, must keep one foot inside a cloth sack at all times. Her opponent, a man, is trapped in a narrow pit, his movements limited by the very ground itself. Both of them wear linen suits so tight they make a modern wetsuit look baggy. The duel is as much about balance and awkwardness as it is about strength. You blink, and the vision fades, the amphitheater returning around you. The consequence is plain. Every culture has its own version of spectacle, its own rituals for deciding fate. The Roman arena is no different, though its grandeur and gravity set it apart. You feel the weight of centuries pressing in, each fight echoing the last, each aftermath as solemn as a temple at midnight. You linger a moment longer. The silence is not simply emptiness. It is the arena breathing out after holding its breath for so long. You run your hand along the cold stone, feeling the grooves worn smooth by generations of spectators. There is history here, layered and dense, as if the very rock remembers every story told within these walls. You wonder, just for a moment, what it would be like if modern sports had consequences like these. Imagine a soccer match where the losing team faces exile, or a boxing bout where the champion's fate is debated by a crowd holding torches. The stakes in ancient Rome were life, honor, and the unpredictable will of the masses. A game show where the prize is survival. The torches are burning lower now, their light flickering on the sand. The shadows seem to grow, swallowing the marks of battle, erasing the evidence of what just happened. The air feels colder, the silence thicker. You sense that in a few moments even these traces will be gone, swept away by the next contest, the next story. The amphitheater is nearly empty. You hear footsteps echoing down the stone corridors, the last of the crowd heading home. Somewhere a distant gate creaks open, letting in the night air. You realize that this quiet is not just the end of a fight. It is the beginning of another story, waiting to be told. You take one last look at the arena floor, the sand already settling, the blood darkening in the fading light. The dust, the cold, the weight of history. These are the true souvenirs of the craziest one-on-one fights in ancient Rome. As you leave the arena, you carry with you the whispers of the past and the curiosity of what legend will be born the next time the crowd gathers. The silence is not an ending. It is a question left hanging in the air. Amphitheater arena, Imperial Rome. Dusk settles as the crowds thin and the air grows cooler. You linger in the center of the sand-strewn arena, the cold stone pressing against your soles, a quiet counterpoint to the fading echoes of the day's spectacle. The torches overhead sputter, sending flickering shadows up the ancient walls, a living mural of all the battles, blunders, and blinding moments of glory that have unfolded here. For a heartbeat, you can almost hear the ghosts of the crowd, their cheers and jeers woven into the fabric of the place, as seamless as the dust beneath your feet. It is easy to forget, amid the roar and spectacle, that the arena was a crucible for more than just brawn. Each fight, each 1v1 encounter, was a gamble with fate. You watch as the last of the attendants sweep away a trail of crimson sand, the gritty grains whispering stories of both triumph and loss. You sense that, in this space, every duel was about more than life and death. It was about honor, spectacle, and the silent judgment of thousands. Sometimes, it even felt as if the gods themselves were keeping score. You breathe in the air, thick with the tang of iron and old sweat, and let your thoughts drift to those who stood here before you. Picture 2. Gladiators facing off, their armor glinting in the torchlight, every muscle poised for that split second when the world narrows to a single swing or dodge. It is not so different, you realize, from a modern showdown at center court. Except, of course, nobody's tossing Gatorade at the winner, and the losers don't exactly get a chance to come back next season. The amphitheater itself feels like a living thing, holding the secrets of every whispered prayer and every desperate shout. As a bystander, you are both witness and participant, swept up in the drama and yet safely apart. The dust settles around your ankles, and you catch yourself imagining what it must have been like to fight for your honor, your very right to exist, with nothing but cold iron and the weight of 1,000 eyes pressing down on you. Every scrape on the stone, every faded bloodstain is a reminder that this place was never just a stage. It was a proving ground, a place where reputations were built, broken, and sometimes, if the crowd was feeling generous, miraculously restored. The amphitheater is silent now, but in your mind's eye, the duels replay themselves in slow motion. You see the gladius flashing, the shield buckling, the split-second decisions that meant everything. You wonder, briefly, how these moments shaped not just the fighters, but everyone watching. Did they see their own struggles reflected in the sand and sweat? A sudden gust sends a swirl of dust across the arena, and for a moment you are reminded of a different kind of duel. One fought not here in Rome, but in the Middle Ages, when judicial duels became a legitimate way to settle disputes. Imagine a world where the outcome of your lawsuit depended on your sword arm rather than your lawyer's silver tongue. The stakes were just as high, but the rules had changed. The gods were now expected to step in and tip the scales for the truly deserving. That twist in the tale, where fate is both judge and jury, lingers in the air, a reminder that the line between justice and spectacle has always been a little blurry. You pause, letting the quiet settle around you. The torchlight throws your shadow long and thin across the sand, and you suddenly feel the weight of all those who have stood here, hearts pounding, waiting for the signal to begin. In another time, another place, a man named Godfrey of Bouillon would step onto his own battlefield. Known as much for his towering physical presence as for his unwavering faith, Godfrey's legend began not with a sword in the arena, but with a cross on his chest. Godfrey's story is the stuff of campfire tales and late-night whispers. After the First Crusade, he became the defender of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, a role that made him a living symbol of both strength and piety. Where our gladiators fought for personal glory, Godfrey fought for a cause that was supposed to transcend the self. Yet, in both cases the world watched, hungry for heroes, quick to judge the defeated. The sand beneath your feet shifts as you step over a groove worn deep by centuries of pacing. You realize that every one-on-one battle here was a crossroads. Win, and you might earn your freedom, your fame, or at least another day's breath. Lose, and you became part of the arena's silent memory, another ghost in the dust. The stakes are not so different from the ones you face in your own life, though the weapons may have changed. Sometimes it still feels like you are fighting for honor, for recognition, for a place in the story. The amphitheater's stones seem to glow in the twilight, warm with the day's heat and the memories of 1,000 contests. Beyond the walls, the city of Rome stirs, vendors packing up, children laughing, the distant clatter of carts on cobblestone. Here, though, all is still. You listen, half expecting to hear the echo of a long-ago victory cry, or the sharp intake of breath before a final, desperate charge. As you linger, you recall that the world outside these walls was just as turbulent. In far-off England, the Battle of Evesham raged, royal and rebel forces clashing for control of a kingdom. It is a reminder that the urge to settle things with a duel, be it with swords, words, or sheer willpower, runs deep. The arena may be empty now, but the spirit of competition, the drive to prove yourself before an audience, never really leaves us. it simply finds new forms. A breeze tugs at the hem of your tunic, carrying the scent of old olive oil and distant fires. You look up at the sky, now streaked with the last purple light of day. The amphitheater feels both vast and intimate, a paradox of stone and story. You are just one more figure in its endless parade of dreams and memories, your own heartbeat syncing with the quiet rhythm of history. In this final moment, you let the silence wash over you, the gritty dust beneath your sandals, the faint roar of crowds long gone, the cold iron memory of the battles fought here. All of it settles into a kind of peace. The amphitheater holds your secrets, as it has held so many before. You smile, knowing that the stories of these one-on-one battles endure not just because they were spectacular, but because they remind us all, in the end, we are spectators to our own fates. The arena may be empty, but your dreams are just beginning. Sleep well, Gladiator.